Are we live? Looks like we are. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, fun day today. I was able to get my leg over the Triumph Speed 400 finally, but unfortunately, I lost the video. Basically, it was just me going over the bike, showing the bike, and then a recap video of the post ride. Well, I got you the recap video of the post ride, but unfortunately, leading up to that, I wasn't able to get, let's just say I wasn't able to retrieve the video. So there's that. But was able to get some time with the bike, had a ball with that thing, and as it turns out, quite a bit quicker, or at least I should say faster, than what I had initially given it credit for. So there's that. As far as, car stuff, truck stuff, I got to tell you guys something. I am, with the 2025 Ram 1500s hitting the scene with the Hurricane 6 already, I am scratching at the opportunity to line up Whitey against one of those trucks. I would prefer a four-wheel drive 355 geared standard output, have them both launch in four-wheel drive. Let's find out where these trucks wind up. The Turbo 6, if it's allowed to spool up, is going to have a major advantage over the Coyote. So there's that on the launch. Will it be enough of an advantage, and will it be able to stave off the horsepower charge of the 5-liter, though, on the big end? And, of course, you've got to remember that it's a heavier truck. There's also the 10-speed automatic in the favor for the Ford. Guys, I'm telling you, this would be a legit race. Now, that being said, no, you can't tune the Hurricane 6, at least not yet. But I would have to put it up against my mildly tuned 5-liter. Got to remember, I didn't go after more power with my truck. It was just shift points and some torque modulation. That was it. And I've already got that truck. It's a mid 13-second truck. If you want to average cooler air where it's like a low 13-second truck, and warmer air where it will only seem to run 1370s, average those two together, call it a 1340 or a 1350 truck. That's the number that new Ram is going to have to cover to be in the hunt. So can it do it? Will it do it? Is the bigger torque number really there? And here's the twist, fellas. Throw the Ford on corn while you're at it. See, here's where things get really lively for me between the F-150 and that new Ram. The Ram's got the turbo and the 6, but ain't got the corn, baby. And the thing about that is, well, the Ford will, from what I can tell, and this is, keep in mind, I've run mid-13s with my Ford on straight 93 octane, and in funky weather, it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's corn or not. It's still going to run like a 1370 in just crap air. And it's really only when the air is good that the corn seems to offer up a substantial advantage. But I want to put the Ford on corn. Jim's in, bro. Where the hell have you been? My man, Jim Mopar. Love that dude. He and I are the only two people that I think were campaigning Hellcats that were stock boost 93 octane that were damn near running 9s. My man, I'm out the game. So I have to leave it to you. Bro, please. You got to beat a 1005. Do it. I know you got it in. He might have already done it for all I know. But everybody say what's up to Jim, man. It's good to see you. Here's the thing. I want to make sure that I want to put the Ford up against one on 93 octane to 93 octane. I get all of that, but the Ford, and there's about a 10% difference in power. So realistically, especially in cool air, where my truck has run that 1330 already on corn, but again, it didn't really make a huge difference, but it is a difference nonetheless, and it all is down low. What a good race that would be. I think it's whoever gets off the line first is going to win the race, but that is something that I don't know. That's something that I'm really I'm hoping to make that happen. If I can find somebody with that truck, we've got to line them up. And I mean, it's got to be like a best of 5 too, because I can promise you, I ain't going to win every one of those races. At least I better not. And that gets me into the next avenue that I wanted to talk about, truck versus truck. I know that there's a lot of folks that will just absolutely give the Ford a tongue bath. But I got to be honest with you guys, there's a lot that the Ford leaves on the table that the Dodge picks up. Ride quality is a big part of that. There's the snappiness. The torque down low is just... oh, it's just all there. So, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I lost the feed. What happened? Winter got me. Yes, you are. I ran a 10055. Nice. And negative 397. Congratulations, brother. April 21st. Last fall, I could only duplicate my 10064. Awesome. Gotcha. Fellas, he got me by, 300ths of a second. My dude, got it. Congratulations, Jim. I'm stoked for you, brother. Sweet. I love it. Very, very cool, bro. Very happy. So for those of you guys that don't know, Jim's in Canada. I'm down here in South Texas. And it's one of those things where his car is a little bit different configuration than mine, but we're both stock boost, both running on 93 octane. Both of us vying for who's got the fastest gasoline-powered Hellcat, period. End of discussion. Not in the United States, not in Canada, basically on the planet. When you're putting those, when you're putting something together that is in essence like how you would drive the thing around. And we were never able to get the cars in the same air at the same time. But for us, it didn't really matter. It was just, look, throw up a number, whatever you ran it in, right? And we traded back and forth. What was it, Jim? For like a couple of years at least, whittling down this number to finally, a 1005 something. And that's pretty. I mean, that's at 136 to 138 for Jim miles per hour. I think I was at 136 and a half or something like that for mine. So, guys, everybody say congratulations to Jim. He took the title back. We've been trading that baton back and forth like crazy. So, my man, stoked for you. Very happy for you, my friend. Let's see. Oh, what was I getting at? The thing about the Ford versus that new inline 6, it's going to be close, but it is a bit of a cheat code to run E85 in the Fords. I have to admit that. To give you an idea, it's all in the 0 to 60 and it's all in the launch. There is a 0.2 of a second advantage, stock tune for stock tune, if you will, for for corn versus straight up gasoline. And you can feel it. I mean, you can feel it when you go to launch the truck. It's there. In fact, the Ford feels a lot like a 6-cylinder with a turbocharger, the way that it ramps in and builds up power. And there's really, I mean, there's some stuff that I could do in the tune that I can collect some power down low. But guys, remember that it's not all about planting power early on either. If that creates a problem, you just light the tires up. And that was the issue that I had with the Hemis, is that they build great bottom end torque, but it's great bottom end torque at, well, there's two expenses: at the expense of power up top, but more importantly, at the expense of traction. And the Ford, when it's not in four-wheel drive, it will absolutely scorch the tires. Don't get me wrong, but it will, how do I put this? It will be easier to launch either way. And here's the other thing. The reason why I want to run a 355 geared variant of the inline six versus a 392 or a 321, my truck is a 331 geared truck. The 355 gives the advantage to the inline six. I get that, especially because it's even got more torque. But I don't feel like it's fair to run it up against a 392 truck for a couple of reasons. One, in cold weather, the 392 geared truck and a 373 geared Ford is still going to have some traction issues if it's really deep DA. The 331 will always allow that truck to dead hook from a stop. And that's a kind of thing, because my truck in cooler air would, and it's done it before, it'll kind of haze the tires just a little bit on the launch. But just saying, too bad you aren't there to keep me on my toes. Bro, I'm still going to be pushing you. I'm going to be asking every time, man. And I still have my tune, baby. I just don't have the car. You know what? It sucks too that my track closed, and it just was not going to be feasible for me to get the car to the closest track. Was going to be it was just going to be a nightmare. So, but the guy that got my car is in love with it. He's not a racer. The car's kind of been sent off to stud. So that's a cool thing. I don't know, but you never know, brother. I may get the itch and find myself a little 2017 Hellcat sitting around out there somewhere at one point. We'll see. But congratulations, brother. I am super stoked for you, man. But let me check in with you guys real quick. Rift is first in. What's up, man? Marco is in. Itch, good day, sir. Dave is in. Chase, yo, Mr. B. What's up, Chase? Chase saying, what up, B? Rift is saying hello to all. Chase, howdy, Rift. Chase going to be building a race truck. Very nice. Perfect guy to go to. I can give you some advice, but yeah, most performance is going to be who you want to talk to if you're building a Dodge. Boy's got some fast Mopars running around right now. Let's see. I read, no matter how much power a diesel vehicle has, they never seem fast. I don't know. I don't know. I've driven some very fast diesels. There's Jim's first. What's up, buddy? Chase is in. Howdy, Jim. Almost is in. Evening B. Hello. Riv saying I ran a 998 with my super stock. Very cool. Very cool. Oh, Shane saying recently ordered an LSX 427 block for my 5th gen Camaro. Excited for the NA build. That was a fun car. One of my favorite cars to drive that we had. It wasn't a shop car. It was a customer's car, and he was building it as kind of a Ultimate Street Car Challenge type car, but it was a 427 build also. A 6-speed car. I love that car. The cool thing, it had it was a McLeod twin disc, I think, was in it. What the hell clutch was in that thing? I think it was a McLeod twin disc. Wasn't it? Yeah, anyway, that is a car that I would have loved to have had on the drag strip. I even told the guys, look, that car was so easy to launch. It was like I was launching an automatic with just a variable vane torque converter. I could hold that car at 5,000 RPM, roll into the throttle quickly, and just fan the clutch back, and it would just feed power through that thing. And I never got a chance to get it to the drag strip, but that was an easy, like probably a 980 car. I wouldn't say 970, 980 or at least a 990 car. on the drag strip. And I mean, I could probably do that every single time going down the track in that car. It's one of my favorite combinations. See, oh, sorry, I just got a side for NA build. Going to be made into a 6L90E and a 391 gear. Still trying to figure out the problem on my 14 6-speed Challenger. Oh, that sucks. There's Jim again. Yes. Chase is out there smoking burbs. I like it. Skids is in. There's some upside to that car if you get it tuned, man. Jim, I'll always be around to keep you on your toes, brother. What's the question about the tune, Chase? I want a supercharger and stage 4 camshaft with headers. I don't know what headers I want yet. Cooks. You want Cooks. You may not know it, but you want Cooks. And the reason why, first of all, it's build quality. Second of all, it's fitment. Listen, we have the opportunity and the option to run any brand of header through the shop, and Cook's got the nod every single time. Matter of fact, it would go like this. Customer comes in and says, well, I've got my own headers that I want you to install. Nope, not going to happen. You either buy what we tell you to buy, you install what we tell you to install, or you find another shop to do the work. That's how strongly we felt about Cook's headers versus other headers, because outside of a couple of other manufacturers, namely Stainless Works, when it comes to Mopar stuff, there weren't a lot of headers that would fit well. You run into issues with fitment, and it creates all kinds of other problems downstream. So Cooks it is, KOOKS. Jim said, I think we were swapping since we were running 10.4s. I think you're right. I think you would run a 10.4 and I'd just run a 1054. No, I'm sorry. I had just run yeah, that is correct. I'd run a 1054 and you ran a 1048 or something like that. And I caught wind of that. And it was on from there. So, I mean, yeah, we've been back and forth, guys, for a long time. And I know for a fact both of us have hurt a lot of feelings over the years. I've had pulley cars that would jockey just to run me at the track. I've been accused of hitting my car with nitrous. Just all kinds of stupid stuff. In fact, I had at one point told the guy, I said, I just popped the trunk, popped the hood, opened the car up, said, find it. I'd love for you to find nitrous in this car. This is a guy that was a 295 upper car. Oh, and then there was another dude that had one of the Incognitus pulleys that I smoked. And I even gave the guy the leave. Like, I was sitting in the left lane and I'm just looking over. I did a burnout, staged the car, got in early, double bulbed his ass, and I told, go. I'm just waiting on you. Just because the guy wanted to, anyway, that was a bad day for that dude. That's actually, his buddy is the guy with the Incognito pulley that after I had raced his friend, I was even saying, dude, something's not right with your car, bro. I mean, I'm not trying to be cute. He was data logging his buddy's car with the same setup, and that's when I caught it. Bad idea. Anyway, definitely cool, Jim. Sovereign is in. I like it. Motor City is in. Jim's is a 16. Yep. And by the way, no, both of ours are regular Hellcats, dude. By the way, so Jim and I did this. You need to understand this. Jim and I did this with 2015 and a 2016 Hellcat. The later variants who haven't touched our numbers technically have better superchargers. And that's the funny thing about it. We're doing it with less boost by about, not by much, but it is notable. And I know this only because I used to see so many data logs. The KPA on the backside of the later car 17 and up was always higher. But that means the timing was lower. And if you're in really clean air, it doesn't really matter. That's the other thing. So I would go, man, I don't know. It's just a 15, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Made the lowest power on the dyno. I don't know why it's so fast, man. It must just be pixie dust. I'm telling you, there. Don't sleep on a properly set up 15 or 16. They're saying, oh, best he got was a 1056. Moto X, greetings. So I'm saying build a DeLorean with a red-eye engine. There's a lot of, well, I say a lot. There's more and more of the DeLoreans running around with LS swaps. Oh yeah, I don't know anything about the. Actually, what's funny is DMC is located in Houston. Jim saying, thanks. My stock car with a stock tune when the PC was still locked was a 1037. Mine, shit, 1040. What was it? I had a lottery hit with that thing with the locked PCM. Shoot. 1048, I think, is what it ran. Was its best hit with completely locked ECU. And I was running the race stars with Mickey Thompson ET Street R's on them. Jim saying, thanks, B. Of course, man. Thank you, brother. You're only as good as your dance partner, baby. Jim's been a great one. Oh, Riff's having to go down to Sonoma. Ugh. That's tough. So, almost had you. Do you find it difficult to tune the Coyote being a torque-based computer? We are having a little trouble getting drivability right on my full bolt-on Gen 2 Coyote. I work at a speed shop that mainly tunes LS. Bro, let me tell you something. It hasn't been... So for you guys don't understand... Okay, so what Almost is asking is everything about the Coyote platform when you're tuning it is it's all based around... It's two things, really. But there's a lot of torque-based tables. And you have to remember that everything that you touch in a Coyote is torque-based, but the same is still kind of the same for the Mopars too. But there is a completely different mentality that you have to have with a Coyote. You have to make sure when you go into a Coyote for drivability, you can't, okay, so with a Mopar, you can just be more is better, and you can gavel that thing into being, to acting right, okay? It does not work the same with the Ford. To keep drivability and to keep that transmission from losing its mind, you've got to concentrate. If you want the transmission to do something, you have to know when it is commanding that torque value, because that torque value is part of this committee of tables that has to come together to agree to what gear it's going to be in and all this other stuff. It's not complicated once you get it down. You just have to remember, oh shit, okay, I've got to make sure that I change 4 different torque tables and don't touch expected torque tables based on throttle position and all this. It gets to the point where it's really absurd almost. So yeah, because at first I was like, oh, this is easy. I recognize all of this. I made some changes to the tune and the transmission didn't like it. There was a lot of goofy stuff going on with how it was shifting. And the other thing was it was trying to bark the tires just on partial throttle first to second, because I'd played with some expected torque values. And yeah, so there's some stuff you can play with, other stuff you can't. What I did with mine is I reverted everything as far as torque tables and all of that. I chilled a lot of that out, threw in some driver demand torque, And then for anything over, I changed some of the table parameters. I kind of went in there and scrambled up some of the parameters and moved some things around as far as what RPMs I wanted them to be. What the RPM that I wanted to pivot the numbers around, I changed that around. It just moved them up so that now I've got a higher expected torque and higher pressures coming in deeper in the RPM range, and tried to chill everything else out down earlier on upstream, if that makes any sense at all. For any of you guys that know what I'm talking about or know Coyote stuff, you're going, oh yeah, I've done that too. And some of you guys are going, oh, I didn't think to do that. That's what you got to do to keep them happy. It's kind of weird. It is the same as the Mopar strategies. You just have to be, what's the right word I'm looking for? You cannot be, don't go in thinking that, oh, I found something I can add or subtract or get more torque or whatever. It don't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. There's also some other things like throttle body at wide open throttle that I played with. It didn't really make a difference. There are some things like so I've got my clipped where, like, if I tip into the throttle, I am not on pedal follower, but my pedal and my throttle body follow each other identically. And I'm not on pedal follower mode. That's been the biggest thing for me, was to get it to act like that. Once I got it to act like that, everything else downstream started acting better. And now the truck's really nice. I may actually, believe it or not, I may pull some driver demand torque out of it down low. It seems a little counterintuitive, but it can be a little bit, it's a little, the shift strategy in the Fords already suck. And that was something I was going to eventually get to, but the smoothness of the Dodge is just freaking, it's noticeable compared to the Ford. The Ford, because it's torque, it's always, the Ford is more aggressive. So the Ford, it always feels like it's a hammer looking for a nail, basically. Whereas the Dodge is just a lot more chill. It's like, yeah, we like it. The Ford is a little bit different. I do have mine to where, though, driving it in normal mode is actually preferable to me than driving it in sport. I've made normal quite a bit more aggressive. And then there's some other stuff. There's like some background tables that I guess we don't have access to that can somehow, I'm still trying to figure this out, because you have torque modulation base, then you have torque modulation, was it schedule 1, schedule 2? Or alternate 1, alternate 2, sorry. But I can't log what torque modulation source it's looking for. You go to your throttle torque source and it just says driver demand. So, which is good because it's not pedal follower, but it's also, and some of you guys are going, nerd! Anyway, I get it. I'll get past this soon enough. But because I can't log what torque source it's collecting, which one it's commanding. Anyway, I need to get the manual. There is a 10R80 manual, tuning manual, that I didn't get, haven't gotten it yet. And I need to find out what that torque modulation is for. And if it is for what I think it is, it's got more torque taken out of it in sport mode. If it's acting the way anyway, that's where I'm at with that. But it's doing great. And matter of fact, I'm going to be driving the truck for the balance of this week. So what is this? The 20-somethingth? The 30th? Tomorrow's the 1st? I'll probably drive this truck through this week and allow all the adaptives to get through adaptives, because one of the things that I noticed with this thing is that it really does need to go through an adaptive process, because the shift characteristic, like how it engages a gear, will change. Even if you drive it identically, it'll improve as you drive it. And whereas the Dodge, you just get in it and nail it. With the only issue with the Dodge in that OS has nothing to do with the transmission whatsoever. With the Dodge, it's mainly in the fact that it seems like it's real sensitive to knock or noise. The knock sensors are early on, and then it learns around that. And I don't know if there's a something in, like if there's a multiplier slash scaler or something in the Dodge protocol. I could never find one to make that go away. So, oh, Riff, they're not prepping that track. That sucks. Oh, Chase, you're talking about the same truck I have. I love it. I got a Dodge with a 5.7 Hemi. I've got, let's see. Let me think about this for a minute. I've tuned 1, 2, 3 of my, well, 2 of my own personal Dodges. And I will say this, the fun thing about the Dodge is that there's not a lot you've got to do. It's just adjusting shift points. Oh, Jim B, to compensate for your weight advantages, we added 200 RPM to the last 2 shifts. I had a good tailwind. Man, I tell you what, the night, you know what's funny? The night I went 1054, for you guys that don't know, the night that I went 1058. The night that I went 1058, it was a weird ass night. So let me set the stage for you. This is a really kind of a cool story. The night that I went the number, I had run a string of 1008s. Now, 1008 was the number to beat right up until Jim beat it with a 1064, I believe. And so the other car that I tuned was Orange Crush. Orange Crush 2016 Hellcat, but very full weight. Front seats, back seat, the speaker box was in the car, stock airbox, K&N filter, 93 octane. That's it. 309 gear. And that car, the goal for that car was for it to run a 1016. If I could get that car to run a 1016, that was going to be a huge thing for me. And so he had run a 1018. He was always about a tenth of a second slower than me because of my weight advantage. And keep in mind, we're all running sway bars. We're all running, all of that. So the cars, my car and Jim's car weren't set up exactly the same, but it's just personal preference at that point. We discovered way early on that the weight mattered, but it didn't matter the way that you would maybe think. Like some guys would say, oh, it made all this big difference. It did, but it didn't. And the gear really didn't seem to matter either. In fact, there were a ton of nights where I wished like hell I'd have left the stock 262 gear in the car, because the 309 gave me fits on more than a few occasions getting the thing out of the hole. So I had aborted runs in clean air that, would have at least kept the car in the hunt if it would have hooked. So believe it or not, Jim, there was a hot minute about leading up to the car running the 5058 that the stock diff was actually, I still have the stock diff to that car, but it was ready to go. It was actually going to be swapped in the weekend after that. But anyway, just so happens the car was running really good that night, and it went 1008, 1008, 1010. It spun to a 1011. And it was literally the last run of the night. And this was a night where it was cool. The DA was really low, but it was muggy. And there was no getting around that. And it was the grains were going up as the DA dropped. And so it's like a trade-off. But I wanted Chris to have a running mate. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen Chris's car, Orange Crush, look in my videos, look for when we ran against each other at Spring Nationals as the exhibition cars, and we both ran identical numbers in the heat for that. So that'll give you an idea of where that car was. And so I get up to make the hit, the car, and I'm literally we are the 2 last cars going down the track. The Mustang in front of me tears up the track, street tire car. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at least Chris is going to have a running buddy. We always used to, if one of us didn't win, we could at least, we were more into reaction times. We're just who can beat who in a drag race. So the race was every bit as important, and cutting the light was every bit as important to us as covering a number. The number was just to prove the cars were healthy. Yellow, 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 green. Okay, so I stab the gas. I get about a full rotation out of the tires, spun just a little bit. Chris and I both are neck and neck, and I just creep on him a little bit. And the pass is done. As I'm going through the traps, I'm showing like 207 degrees on my water temperature. We kind of got burned a little bit on the tree just because we were held up a little bit. So to me, it was a throwaway pass, but my only concern was his car. So when I pull up the app and it said 1016 with a something, I'm looking for his car. Because even though I won the race, first of all, I didn't know who got the jump. We were both practically identical on reaction time. But when you're that close, you really aren't paying attention and you can't really tell. We're talking literally the blink of an eye. That's it. That's how much of a difference some of this can be. And in the case of, with these records that Jim and I were chasing, it takes you 0.2 of a second to blink your eye. We're looking for 2 or 3 hundredths of a second. So 10 times less than that. So anyway, we get to the end of the pass. I saw what my gauges looked like. Didn't even look at my number because it was shot, I thought. And I'm looking at his, 1016, and I was like, yeah, awesome. But then I look at mine, and then you can hear me in the video because it's an in-car video, and I was blown away that the car ran the number. So anyway, some fun lead up to that. Where the video starts, we had been held up previous to that. And so from there on, you can see what it did. But anyway, fun. I mean, yeah, it's a ride-along video. You were riding along with me as I made that pass. So that's kind of cool, too. Chase saying, okay, thank you, B. Yes, sir. Jim saying, yep, that's when we started. Yes, sir. Yeah, and that's the fun part, man. Jim and I have been trading numbers back and forth for a while, which makes it really cool. Stuart's asking, does a Fastman throttle body only increase drag strip times? It depends. But make sure if you do get one of those throttle bodies, make sure it's centered on the bore of your throttle body. But yeah, I mean, it can. A lot of that depends on if you have a ported throttle body, it can help more then. I don't know that it'll help you a ton without it, but it will increase some throttle response, make the car a little bit more fun to drive. Chase, gap to Chevy, nice. Yeah, Rip, any of the red eye variants are marketably different when you drive them than a regular Hellcat. They've got a lot more torque down low. They're softer up top though than the Hellcat, but they do have more torque down low, and they're just a very happy car to drive. One of the things that I've said over and over and over again about the red eye variants is that they are one of the most pleasant cars to drive. And a lot of it just has to do with they're just happy freaking car. I don't know how else to put it. The Demon to me was, I got to put it to you like this, because I had the Demon for a while. The Demon to me was the happiest car in the world to drive, and then I started driving red eyes, and they were all the same to me. They're just always in a good mood. Oh, Chase saying it was a tow race tune. Gotcha. What that'll typically mean is that it'll have some torque through some timing down low and through some mid range. They'll kind of try to chase that a little bit, and then they'll leave the top part of it absolutely alone, and they will not touch the knock sensors. By the way, okay, you're asking about like there was a question about the Fords. There is an amount in the knock sensors that you have to adjust for the Mopars. They're way too sensitive, and the Hemi just makes more racket, or at least the knock sensors pick up on a racket that the Hemi makes that will, what's the right way to put it? It just pisses off the knock sensors, so you have to desensitize them a little bit. With the Fords, you don't really want to do that. Like, it's not you can, okay? But you got to be super mindful of what you're doing. So let's say, for example, you're putting a tune together for a Ford and you are gonna be running corn. Okay, so you're absolutely gonna be running corn with this tune, and you're gonna pull the tune out when you put gasoline in it. Even though it's a flex fuel tune, you can still tune it specific to corn, because what you do is you force the thing to throw more timing at it than it really wants to, because the Ford goes looking for knock, and it will advance timing over your base timing table. It'll just start advancing timing. Oh, I don't see any knock yet. Keep throwing timing at it. Oh, found some, and then it'll pull back a little bit. So in the data log, you'll see knock retard. But if you see knock retard that's positive, that means the computer is throwing extra timing at it just to see if it can find knock somewhere. When you see on corn, you'll see it pull timing on the very top end of the pull. I still don't know why. I don't know where this logic is coming from, but you'll also notice that the timing is about 4 to 5 degrees less with the E85 than it is with 93 octane. You might say, well, Mace, that doesn't make any sense. Well, let me explain to you why. On a direct injected engine with corn, which is oxygenated, you don't need as much timing because there's oxygen in the fuel that helps to spread the flame propagation. So when the kernel gets ignited, it's kind of like having, because there's extra oxygen in there, and because you didn't have to carry it through, or you didn't have to impede airflow with the fuel, you've got the extra oxygen, or you've got the atmospheric oxygen, which would have come in with it to begin with. Plus you've got the oxygen in the fuel. So you literally have, in essence, do you call it nitrous? Do you call it supercharging? That's what E85 does and can do when used in an application that is designed for it. Think how weird that is, right? You don't get that with... You're not going to get that same effect with a normal fuel injection system. But carburetors will actually do the same thing as direct injected motors, in the respect that you've got much more time for the latent vaporization to cool down your intake charge. So you can actually condense the intake charge as it's going into the cylinder. You can't do that with port fuel injection. So carburetors, you can take advantage of E85 with. Direct injection, you can take advantage of E85. It's just the regular fuel injection stuff that can't really do anything as well with it. Anyway, it's a long way. I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, the timing thing. So, yeah, one of the things that you can do if you're going to run corn is you can do one of two things. You can tell the computer, no, I want you to throw even more timing at it. And then you desensitize the knock sensors, where you wouldn't want to do that on 93 octane because it's constantly throwing timing at 93 octane. In fact, it's not uncommon to see the computer throw 4 degrees, 4.5, 4.8 degrees of timing at 93 octane, whereas it will flatline or only add maybe 2 degrees of timing for corn, and then in high load applications, high RPM, you'll see it draw back and you'll see it go into knock retard. You might go, how the hell is it going into knock retard? It's like it is, but it isn't. And that's why oh my God, it's why the Coyote platform is just so freaking good. Like there's, in terms of making power, and it's nothing that the architecture of it is doing. It's all in the computer. So you can say, well, the Coyote is so fantabulously awesome, magically delicious. It ain't the engine, bro. It's what the engine is being told and how it's being managed that allows it to make that kind of power. Now, you do have to have direct injection, or at least I shouldn't say it like that, a dual fuel system the way that the Coyote has, which is port and direct. The port's just there to keep the valves clean. When you have that kind of architecture, you can get away with stuff like this, and boy howdy does it work. I mean, really well. Like really, really, really well. Oh, Rift. Yeah, they do have a comfier ride. The super stocks do. Yeah, and Stuart's right. I mean, the super stocks never got the love that the other cars did. The demon pops up on that car. That's cool. Mr. Propman, I have dysfunctional motorsports. I think all of us have dysfunctional motorsports. Moto X, why do Demon 170's grenade? Man, I want to. Gears and Guns is in. What's up, bro? Hope you're doing good. Why Demon 170's grenade? So, I don't want to get too deep into that. I think I've got a reason why I was talking about that at one point. I'm going to be doing, matter of fact, this will give you an idea for what I am up to. Make this where you can see it. You know you're into some nerd shit when you start getting molecular weight of corn, gasoline, and diesel fuel. So I wonder what I'll be talking about in the next video. It's going to be what happens to these cars, these race cars, when you are running them on corn. You're not allowing the engine to distill out this ethanol that will in fact get past the rings and start to contaminate the oil. There are protocols to living with and or racing a vehicle running any kind of alcohol, methanol, ethanol, it doesn't matter what it is. They all have the same drawback, which is you cannot run one of those engines, I'm going to say the word cold, but you've got to run those engines at a higher temp, because if you're racing them, or you need to make the hit and then let the car idle, let the oil temperature get up to distill out any of the ethanol. The way that it works, the way that it's designed to work for a flex fuel vehicle, okay? Flex fuel cars are supposed to be driven daily. Flex fuel cars are supposed to be driven to where they're going, raced, and then driven back. If you're not doing that, you've got to change the oil much more regularly. For a lot of the guys, for a lot of years that were running corn, one of the things that you would notice is that they would drive their cars to wherever they were going. They would make the hit and they would drive it home. And they would say, well, I never have a problem. UOAs don't look bad with the oil. I don't see what anybody's talking about. Where people have problem is where they will take their car off of a trailer because they trailered it to the drag strip. They'll fire it up and they will let it get to, say, 170 degrees engine temperature. But your oil temp's only sitting at about 130. They'll make a hit. Then they'll make another hit and then they'll go park the car. Well, the oil temp never got above 150 or 160 degrees. And you're not actively distilling out the ethanol because ethanol has a molecular weight of 46.068 versus 100.50 for basic gasoline. That is a big difference in molecular weight. That's over double, which means that you've got 30% more fuel in ethanol going into the chamber because of the actual amount of energy that's in ethanol being much less. You need 30% more to equal gasoline. It's an oxygenated fuel, so there's that. You get the power from that. But the big thing is that the molecule size is much smaller by about half. By the way, diesel's at 202. So diesel is double gasoline and is 4 times the molecular weight, or the molecular size of the thing is 4 times the size. So you can't, in other words, you're not pushing that fuel past the rings on the compression stroke the way that you will with ethanol. And that makes sense. I mean, you'll hear this in the next deal, but the composition CH3CH2OH, you've only got 2 carbon atoms. Carbon is the heaviest atom in that molecule. You have an oxygen molecule in there as well. That's going to be consumed in the combustion process, and it adds to the total oxygen content of the actual cylinder that you're working with, kind of like nitrous does. Obviously to a much lesser extent. Gasoline is CHH18, diesel is C12H23. 8 carbon molecules in gasoline versus 2 in ethanol. That's a big difference. And you've got 12 in diesel fuel versus 2 in ethanol. So that will give you an idea why diesels, you can run obnoxious amounts of boost through those things and it doesn't really affect oil. You don't ever hear about oil contamination of diesel, at least not like you would in this case. Or at least if you did, it would be at obnoxiously high by comparison boost levels. You're talking, 80, 90, 100 PSI of boost in those areas. It's because it's a lot harder to press diesel fuel past the rings. And are you sufficiently bored yet? Anyway, that's the whole reason around that. And so there is a protocol for vehicles that are raced, that are not allowed to stay at least 190 to 200 degree oil temperatures for extended periods of time, to distill out. Let me give you an example. Okay, so this is a trick pilots would use in extremely cold temperatures. For a piston engine, and you're running an SAE 30 oil, even SAE 20s would suffer from this, where the oil was literally too thick to allow the engine to turn over. It was just like super syrupy. What they would do is they would add aviation gasoline to the crankcase. Depending on the size of the sump, obviously would determine how much of the gasoline you would put in there, but you'd put the gasoline in there, turn the engine, get it to moving, get that oil flowing with the gasoline in there. You fire it up, ease into it, don't run, war emergency power through the thing, but you would get the thing up into the air, and as the engine would get hot, it would distill out the gasoline. Still not what you'd want to do. You'd want to change the oil when you got to where you're going, but it was the idea that is in essence what's happening. It's also the same thing that's happening with condensation too. I don't want to leave that part of this out of the conversation, but ethanol attracts water. At least it's hydrophilic, meaning it's cool with it. It will combine with water to make a solution that is homogeneous, so to speak. Whereas oil and water are, water or oil is hydrophilic. It doesn't like water. They separate once you try to mix them together. So now you've got ethanol in your oil, and you've got a scenario where any kind of condensation is going to be welcomed by the ethanol that's in the oil. It's kind of a double dip in terms of having a problem. Again, Gears, good to see you. Sovereign, Toyota hydrogen engine. There's a lot of good things to say about hydrogen engines. The only problem is that they're not very ecologically friendly. Unless you are, because you have to remember, the hydrogen, remember this hydrocarbon? Methane is where they get the hydrogen from. And it's because it's easier to crack, let's say you're cracking diesel, it's easier to crack 23 hydrogens off of 12 carbons than it is 2 hydrogens off of 1 oxygen, which would be H2O. And so they use fossil fuels for the hydrogen. Where do you get the electricity to break the bond on the fossil fuels? Well, it's a chemical process, but there's also quite a bit of electricity used, and that's fossil fuels. Anyway, might just be easier to burn the fossil fuels. Chase, what transmission and drive shaft would I need for my build? For if it's a Dodge, I would say HP90 if you can make it work, and see if DSS will jump on that for you. But remind me again what you're building, and I can give you my thoughts on that. Rift, no, it's not just Racer X that's had a problem. There's been a couple of others that have had issues with theirs as well. I've got my own thoughts on why that happened with his, but again, I will defer to him. It's his car, and I'm not going to step on his content. Gears is checking in with Sovereign. Chase, I don't need to be blowing transmissions every time I race. Yeah. Oh, Skid, Toyota's been making hydrogen for a little bit, selling in California only. I can see that. Shane saying, I think I want my next pickup to be a 5-speed GT hatch Fox with the sunroof option. If you can find a Fox with a sunroof, by all means grab it, but just don't drive it when it's wet. Let's see. We're saying, I don't know what we're pointing at. OC 11 kabooms yesterday. Yeah. OC put out a pretty good video on the 170. I think it was yesterday or today. But there have been a few that have let go. Chase, I don't do tunes. I will do peer reviews, but I don't do tunes so much anymore. I would refer you over to Pite's Performance. He can hook you up with a remote tune, or if you want to ship the car, he can tune on site. We had folks that would ship their cars in from all over the continental United States and Canada and Mexico, for that matter, for tuning. So I would run that by him. Jim saying, that was the same setup my car had. Yep, the day it ran 1037, it did it 3 times. All 3 times was hot lapping after a 1040 run. It was only 36 degrees. Nice. Very nice. Man, I tell you what sucks down here, anytime we had cold, like legit cold, dry air, it was a lottery day. You had to hope to God the track was open, but it was always at the expense of a northern wind. Now, why is that a problem? Because HRP faced freaking due north. I was like, is there any way I can run this track backwards? I'm not kidding. And, but yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, and you know what's funny? You would be carrying the record either way right now. We have not had the weather leading up to anything this year, I don't think. That would have been, because let's admit it. I mean, we got a Mother Nature mod that we're playing too. But I will tell you this, one way or another, I probably would have been running, maybe. I mean, I probably would have still been running the 262 in that car. I'd have gone back to it. I had too many. Here's the problem with the 309. I had too many flipping times where the car would rotate the tire just like it did on the 1050 pass, but it rotated the tire, it would get out, and then it would break loose again. And you can sometimes see it in the ride-along videos where the car comes up, and then you'll see it rise up again and come down. It'll go went, and it'll start to spin, and you're always on that fine line where it's like, I don't want to lift. And with these cars, if you come off the pedal, it'll upshift. Anyway, that happened on a few passes. And of course, it's just gonna be a lot more sensitive to track prep. Plus, it would have been cool to not have the other shift and to be able to keep it in load longer in first gear. I think that would have been, and I would have been able to run fourth gear out and carry fourth gear a little bit better. So there's advantages to the 262 that you are very well aware of, my friend. Riff saying they left the brace bar that covers the windshield wiper motors unbolted on my Hellcat. Yeah, that's the front, the torsion brace. Do you think that could be because of what they did? Yeah, I mean, if it caused some damage and it was loose, it could have, yeah. Oh, Stuart. A stage 4 cam with supercharger might be safer with a rotisserie engine build. Well, no, you would definitely want to go soup to nuts on that thing. Stage 4 with a supercharger is, what that means is that you're going to have to pulley the hell out of the blower to get it to be able to feed that engine. And so, although that's not a bad thing, just know that when you put yourself in that type of a scenario, you're going to be turning RPM. And so, yeah, you want to have a full engine build with everything balanced. Balancing is going to be not a luxury, it's going to be mandatory. Because anything with a stage number 4 on it, you might as well bank that you're spinning it to at least 7,500 RPM. So that'll give you an idea as far as how much everything's going to have to be balanced. Oh man, Rift, I don't know about that. That sounds like something else. Oh, almost say, yeah, on the money. Yeah, it feels good at Watt, but that's about it. I'm gonna have Lund take care of her and just wrench on it. It does sound pretty nasty after we give the cams a little bit of overlap. You can definitely do that. That's the other fun thing about the Coyote is you can make that thing do really whatever you want it to do. The only downside to the Gen 4, there's really not a downside to it. It's got a little bit smaller camshafts, but that doesn't seem to affect power. Matter of fact, I'm still trying to, whose idea was it to have that thing try to shift at damn near 7,000 RPM? I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah, you can definitely have, have a lot of fun with the Coyotes, no doubt about it. Yeah, Rip, that is I know exactly what brace you're talking about. Yeah, you don't ever want to leave that loose because you're going to get some twist if you're launching it on the track. Oh, almost said also, like I was saying, we pretty much swapped classic cars with LS cars running Terminator X Holly stuff. So it's like rocket science screwing with Coyote stuff. Yeah, the Terminator X is pretty nice. The Terminator X for Hemis is really good. So yeah, the Coyote stuff, you just say it's not that bad. You just have to be patient, and you've got to be meticulous with every little thing that you adjust. I will say that the truck liked 1 degree of global spark adder, but then I killed that because the 1 degree global also would affect MBT tables, which can screw with multipliers that are in oh my God. Yeah. So what I did is I did to baseline, I added 1 degree, and it was mainly just to clean it up. There was a definite timing gap down low, and then everything above, 5,000 RPM I left stock. And when I did that to my truck, what I noticed on E85 is that it would flatline timing throughout almost the entire pass. And then once it got into the higher gears with higher load and higher RPM, you'd see it pull maybe a degree and a half, or half a degree, just depending on what kind of mood the knock sensors were in. at like 100 and I don't know 6 miles an hour. You'd see it. No, I take it back. About 102 miles an hour through to about 106 to 108 miles an hour. You would see it pulling that timing back. But that's again at real high load, very high wind resistance, all of that. So okay, cool. Whereas on 93 octane, it's just like timing, baby, timing, get you some. So, but yeah, that's what I did with mine. That's what I discovered with mine. I went with a 1 degree global at first. I was like, man, the truck feels better, feels happier, but it ended up liking the baseline only being added to. That way it didn't screw with any of the multipliers or God only knows what else subroutine I could screw up with in that. Yeah, Rift. I don't know, man. Something sounds like it broke pretty hard. I don't know how. I mean, did you break a shock mount or something? What in the world? Let's see. This, yeah, Riff talking about that flex fuel setup too. Oh, brake stuff. My 2014 5.7 Ram has 87,000 miles on it. Always ran 5W20 Mobil 1. Been thinking of switching to 5W30. Good or bad idea? Well, brake stuff. 87,000 miles. She ain't even broken up yet. What the fuck? It's not even broken in yet compared to Buffy. Buffy has just shy of 200,000 miles on her. And she's been running 5W20 since brand new. If you're changing your oil regularly, you get the thing on the highway regularly, you let it run at regular temperatures regularly, you're good. Don't sweat going to a different weight of oil, different viscosity of oil. It's not going to do you any good. And just so you know, Buffy blasts. I mean, that truck is legit strong, and it's every bit as fast, if not faster today than what it was when I picked it up. And that's a 2017 truck. So stick with what you got. Just keep changing it. Change it. I will say this, though. Do not let that truck go over 6,000 miles between oil changes. In fact, if you are at 5,500 miles, those next 500 miles are taking you somewhere to get your oil changed. Stick with that and don't worry about it. You'll be in good shape. They're saying it's the RPMs. Almost asking, pretty sure my Coyote car is like the slowest ride in here, but still Coyote. Hey man, they're fast. You know, the funny thing about the Coyote platform, I've been saying this for years. In fact, back in 2018, I was the guy saying, look, Mopar fam, you better get your act together because the new stuff from Ford is Dirte. And sure enough, yeah, and I was even saying it's an 1180 car out of the box. And it was not long until I was proven correct. But love me some Fox body stuff with the Coyote. That was one of the first things that had caught my eye a long time ago, and where I started really paying more and more attention is when NMRA had Coyote stock, where it was basically you had a stock Coyote engine with a stock Coyote calibration, and those guys were out there running 10s, and it was like this engine's like wholly legit. And you got to remember, I mean, this is when guys with Windsor-based combinations, good set of AFR heads, decent enough cam, carbureted, single plane, you know, those cars were running like 1120s, and a bone stock Coyote would run a 1080. And there's a big old difference between those two numbers. So Kurt saying, I just got in from LA traffic and you guys are talking corn. Yes, we are. Sovereign saying probably not enough oil. Actually, Sovereign, it's the other way around, my friend. Because the oil gets aerated, and it's got an emulsifier in it, so to speak, with the car, with the E85, with the Kern. There's a lot that happens. There's a lot that happens with engine oil, guys, that that you may take for granted. It's why we always say change oil, change oil, change oil. Short trips kill oil. That's why. And so it's so important that you follow a very strict protocol with oil changes. It's not the oil that goes bad. It's everything that is introduced into the oil that makes the solution bad. So let's say the oil itself is just as good as the day that you poured it in there, but you've contaminated it with fuel, ethanol. You've got moisture that gets in there, dirt if your system isn't sealed properly. Whatever the case may be, there's other things that get into the oil that are now diluting the oil, which is to say that you no longer have 100% oil circulating through your oil system. You've got oil plus an intoxicant, so to speak, which is creating problems for the health and well-being of your engine. Overfilling the crankcase is far worse. Far worse. I mean, like Vegas sideshow theatrical worse than not having enough oil in the crankcase, because not having enough oil is to say that it's only running low on oil. Let's say you're a quart low. Okay, well, that's not necessarily bad. It certainly will keep you away from a windage issue, which is when the crankshaft is actively hitting the oil and aerating it. Too much oil, you aerate the oil, which is to say you've got bubbles in the oil. Well, bubbles are made out of air, and air is a shitty lubricant. So it doesn't hold pressure very well when you're putting it through a fluid pump. So you have drastically lower oil pressure, and that's because there's no oil going through there. No oil means no oil film, and no oil film, which is what the crankshaft rides on. The bearing just offers up a very uniform surface for the oil itself. What happens then is you start getting metal on metal contact. The clearances open up, but they're opening up for something that isn't really oil anyway, and now it's a feedback loop of sheer carnage and disaster. That's what happens with this stuff. It's why I always have said, guys, don't think that throwing more oil in the thing is doing yourself any favors. However, that is to say you're low oil based on what you're doing with the vehicle. So in other words, let's say you are actively road racing this vehicle, whatever this vehicle may be, and you have a wet sump. If you are constantly at high RPM, that means you are constantly turning an oil pump at high RPM, which means you're constantly evacuating the sump, which means that the only chance of that sump being covered is to have enough oil in the sump to cover the pump itself. In the event of that situation, you may be better off overfilling the sump, because now you've got a constant amount of oil being pumped through the thing, but it's a lot of oil, but you've got a drain back issue. This is something that the Mark IV Supras used to have a problem with. They would build the engine and it would make a shitload of power, but it would go, you would see it, you would see the car go, what? And the power would hit, it would dial up really fast from a roll, and it would evacuate the part of the area where the pickup was in the sump, and it would starve the engine for oil for about 2 to 3 seconds before the oil would actually drain back, because it would suck the oil out and blow the whole thing over the what would be the rocker cover on one of our cars, but for the cam cover, and it just couldn't drain back. There was a big drain hole that these guys learned that they had to drill in the back of those heads to allow for that oil to get back down into the sump. Well, if you're out racing a car and you are running into an old, this is why it's so important to data log. Data log, data log, data log. Data, 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 data. I have saved more people more money from blown engines by looking at fuel pressure and oil pressure logs. That's it. I have told guys, don't ever come back to the track again until you fix your fuel pressure problem. You can look at oil pressure, check your oil. What's going on here? Why are you losing so much oil pressure? These cars don't do that. Usually it's because they were overfilled. You check the oil and it's too high. It's because oil is getting aerated. So there's a lot that comes into play when it comes into this race game. Sorry, saying, what is Demonology doing that his car hasn't blown up yet? Don't know. Maybe they're changing the oil a lot. Maybe something else. I have no idea. But it's not every one of them is popping. And so since not every one of them is popping, it's kind of hard to get a, like, oh yeah, this is the reason why. It's kind of hard to say. Kurt saying, you got a good one? It's all in how you maintain it. Listen, it's not Demonology, by the way. It's Demonology and Friends. He's got a lot of people that are maintaining that car for him too. So they may have jumped on oil changes. They may be, I don't know. Who knows? But here's the other thing. There's plenty of guys that have been running big horsepower, big boost Hellcats that have been running 8s. Low 8s, mid 8s are like nothing in the Hellcat world. So, and they're all running on the same oil pump that the Demon 170's got. So, is it because they knew how to put oil in their car? Is it because, I don't know. I really don't know, guys. But I can tell you that no matter what the answer to that question is, Dodge has got to get it sorted out and got to get it figured out. Yeah, I mean, it could be anything under the sun. It could be a bad batch of bearings. It could be overfilled crankcases. It could be ethanol contaminated oil. It could be anything in combination there. These things are mechanical. Mechanical stuff fails. It's the way it is. So these things are all still under warranty, presumably. Until we find out, until we're given a definitive answer, we can only speculate. Yeah, Rift, I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff. Stuart, so it can't really run on Pump E85? Sure it can. Absolutely it can. It won't go to full timing, though, until you are at E65 or E70. But yeah, you run it on E85, but there is an advanced maintenance protocol for E85. And look, that's not just me saying it. Ford Motor Company, back in the day, would tell you if you have a flex fuel vehicle, you bought it because it's flex fuel, but you need to know that there's a difference. And they would tell you that in essence, you cut your oil change interval by half when you start messing around with E85. And then they would tell you need to run at least one tank of gasoline through that vehicle per month. And that was to help flush out some of the ethanol, but to also help to lubricate some of the parts in that thing, because fuel pumps are lubricated by the fuel. And ethanol, as it turns out, is a really shitty lubricant. So there's a lot to it, which is also to say, fellas, that yeah, if you bought a Demon 170, buy some fuel pumps. Like right now, they're super easy to swap out, but buy yourself some fuel pumps because you're going to be in needing them. Keep in mind, we were swapping out fuel pumps on Hellcats 2 years ago that were only a few years old, and that's running gasoline. So yeah, it's a real thing, guys. It's a real problem. And yeah, of course you can run it on the 85, but you just have to maintain it the way that you're supposed to maintain it if you're running it on corn. Yeah, you might want to run some gasoline through that thing, Rip. The rings, well, no, the rings are fine. Again, the rings are perfectly suited for what they're working with, but you also have to remember. So think of it like this: the pistons, I want to say, are forged Molnar pistons that are in those cars. Forged pistons grow more as they get hot versus a hypereutectic, which is a stock Hellcat piston. This is where the Hellcat actually has a little bit of an advantage. You might think, the forged pistons, that's better. Yeah, sort of, but the hypereutectic is much more stable in terms of thermal growth or thermally induced growth. And they are also more forgiving. They're more shock forgiving. So that's why OEs use them on basically everything, is because they're just a much more forgiving, kinder piston. But here's the thing. If you run a forged, again, you can see where this feedback loop is coming from. You've got a cold engine with forged pistons. It's got great rings, but the rings have a different expansion rate than the piston does. And the rings are basically, they're reliant upon, they do still expand, but they're also reliant upon the expansion rate of the piston. So you've got a cold piston, relatively speaking, cold rings, cold oil, lots of boost, lots of fuel. Yeah, it's going to get past the rings. The only way you can get around that is a higher tension ring, which is now more friction, which means the engine's going to make less power. You can't close a ring gap, so you can't have more ring surface area. So again, you're kind of stuck when you start talking about the whys behind and the what's behind running a fuel with, again, a molecular weight of only 46. That's why you have to go through the protocol, and that's why it's so important. And again, it's easy to forget. If you drive the vehicle regularly, you're distilling the ethanol out of the oil because it's heating up. It's how the distillation process works. You heat it up, it evaporates, it goes through the PCV system. There it goes. You're left with oil, which has a much higher boiling point. But if you're not driving it regularly, you're not getting the oil temperature up enough, then that over time accumulated ethanol is going to contaminate that oil, and it's not going to be able to lubricate as well as it did. Yeah, he had low oil pressure codes. Someone saying it's crazy that Dodge fired the lead engineer of the Demon 170. Didn't know that, but yeah, they should have called me. I could walk them through a lot better build than what they did. Oh, Dodge getting, well, they're kind of getting away. They're getting away from V8s for sure. Stuart, right? Ford commercials don't involve going back in time with Henry Ford. Yeah, Sovereign, there's Pite's info. Desmond saying, I have a 2015 Chrysler 305/7. I was wondering why my oil temps start overheating after about 5 to 6 minutes of driving. Could it be that my oil pump needs replacing? Define overheating oil temps. 5 to 6 minutes of driving is an incredibly short amount of time to get oil temperature from ambient to, say, 230 degrees. So yeah, I would look at an oil pump, look at your oil pressure. These are things that are going to need to be logged before I can really give an answer. Thank you, Sovereign. I appreciate you hammering that out. Yeah, Sovereign. So yeah, you had one for a balance shaft. That is correct. And that is because 4 cylinders, although they have perfect primary balance, they have terrible secondary balance. You have 2 rocking pairs. And so you get a lot of this way type of a vibration as a secondary vibration. That balance shaft helps to make that go away. The balance shaft it cancels out the secondary vibration of an engine, is what it's designed to do. I didn't see it. You guys got it before I got a chance to see it. So almost had you checking out. We'll see you, bud. Marvelous. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Patrick, man, I appreciate the kind words, buddy. I don't know that. Listen. I've been saying this for a long time. We in the aftermarket have been doing what Dodge tried to do with the Demon 170 for a long time. Matter of fact, this is frustrating. We've been asking for E85 compatibility with these boosted combinations now since 2015. There's no reason under the sun at all why they couldn't be compatible. And guys, listen, I hate to cut y'all short. I've got to break out. We are coming up on about an hour and a half. Let me see if I can catch up with some of you guys real quick. Sovereign, you are correct. In fact, I'm the guy that found his issue with the fuel pumps on that car. I see. Good evening from Lost Wages. Inflation would like to say hello. Red Dog, what's up, man? Good to see you in. Sovereign. Yeah, people would remove the balance shaft. Turbo guys would remove the balance shaft in many cases, or guys that were just spinning it to the moon because the balance shaft could create an issue there. But it also added vibration, so a lot of times it would fry bearings if you tried to do it for too long. Sovereign, makes sense now. Oh, damn. Desmond saying, it surpasses that. It gets to over 300 if I drive it for about 10 minutes. Damn. Something. First of all, check oil pressure. Second of all, check that sensor to make sure that it's accurate. Because the only other thing that would cause that would be a hole in the piston allowing combustion to get into the crankcase somehow. That is insane. I've never heard of that for any 5.7, man. So check oil pressure first. If you've got solid oil pressure, it might just be a sensor. I would hope. I would really hope. Boo said, just found your video on the 426 Grand Cherokee. Just had a lifter fail on my 2014 SRT Jeep. Thinking about the 411 Stroker from MMX. It's a good kit. I like the 411s. I like the 411s better than the 426s, if I'm being honest. Not that it really matters that much, but I don't know. 426 is nice just so you can say you have one. But with that, guys, I've got to wrap it up. Listen, guys, thank y'all so much. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me tonight. Would not do this without you. Guys, listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And fellas, we will catch y'all on the next one. That's a wrap. Adios.